Hi, Elodie, and we're waiting for Richard and Ralph, who are coming through from Sovereign Group. Elodie's from the beautiful Azuri estate, and Ocean Village, Golf and Ocean Village, and their golf course has been newly opened. We have some beautiful photos up on our site. So I was just joining us and turning our focus to Mauritius. We've had a number of people pre this event asking us questions about Mauritius, which is the best visa program. How do we get ourselves there? How do we start a business? What is their plans? So we really do appreciate having some experts with us today that can talk about Mauritius. I think it's many mentioned as it's a new province in South Africa. We have so many South Africans that have moved across there. I know my neighbors have been my ex-neighbors have been sending me pictures of themselves having cocktails in Tamarin Bay and swimming with the kids on the beach here and yachting there. And so needless to say, I defriended him on my Facebook account because I'm feeling a lot of envy. But let us get going. We are on our home stretch here. So Elodie, maybe we can just ask you to introduce yourself and the project. And I know that Elodie's going to start with giving us just a little bit of understanding of Mauritius. Many of you know a fair amount of Mauritius, have been to Mauritius, but it's always nice just to be cognizant of the different nuances, and maybe you can just give us a little bit of a run through. Oh, Elodie, we've got no sound. Whilst Elodie's just fixing her sound there, the joys of Zoom, we still have no sound. I'll give her another second to switch on and switch off if all else fails. No, we can't hear you. So Elodie is going to be explaining Mauritius through the art of contemporary dance for the next 20 minutes. Hello. She's just, yes, we can hear you now. Excellent.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No problem at all.
And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us on the Estate Living webinar again. So yeah, I'm the sales manager for the promoter and developer of Azuri Ocean Golf Village in Mauritius. So I've been in the real estate domain for the past 9 years now. Where I've seen this project grows and a lot of people moving to Mauritius. So it's a pleasure today to speak about Azuri with you and Mauritius, obviously.
Thank you. And for Richard and Ralph, would you mind just quickly introducing yourself before we open up Elodie's presentation? It's just nice to hear what Sovereign is, who Sovereign is, and Sovereign Group. I know we will go further into that when your presentation comes up, but just it's nice for our attendees to know who is on the webinar with them.
Okay, I'll start off. Can you hear me? I just want to check that.
We can definitely hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Richard Neal. I'm the Managing Director of Sovereign Trust Mauritius Limited. So I've recently moved from South Africa, or from Cape Town to Mauritius. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about what Sovereign Trust does. We are an international management company. So I'll cover very briefly what my company does, but spend a bit more time on what my experience of moving to Mauritius was like, so I can give the audience a bit of a first-hand look at the joys and pains of it. And then I'm going to hand over to Rolf. So Rolf is the Managing Director of Sovereign Trust SA Limited. So he's based in Cape Town. And he's going to go into a lot more detail about permits, the actual mechanisms of getting money offshore. Rolf, maybe you want to just chime in and say what you're going to speak about.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the introduction, Richard. So I'll be focusing specifically on the various permit options for Mauritius, their requirements, what they look like, how they operate, but also on the property aspect. If you are looking to purchase property in Mauritius, maybe if you're not going to hold that in your personal name, what structure opportunities are there for that? And then obviously when you need to fund those structures to actually purchase that property, what the practical implications are with Reserve Bank, with SARS, etc. So that would be my main focus during the seminar.
Fantastic. As Richard mentioned that he was based in Mauritius and you were based in Cape Town, I thought, did Ralph pull the short straw there, or who got to move and who got to move to who got to stay in one paradise versus the other paradise? So why don't we look forward to hearing about your journey to Mauritius. I think there's a lot of people that would be interested in knowing. It's always good to kind of get this. It's the devil's always in the details, and it's good to hear what those little details are. So, Clem, would you like to put on Elodie's presentation, and let's hear about the value that Mauritius can offer you from an investment and immigration perspective, proximity to South Africa, and all the beautiful places that are on offer. Thank you.
So yeah, I will have the pleasure to talk about Mauritius, but first I wanted to show you how.
Sorry, Elodie, you muted yourself by mistake.
Yes, indeed. I was just checking how to get.
Oh dear, Elodie, we're having a little technical issue with your sound. It seems to be auto muting.
Yeah, indeed. I was just checking how to put the next slide. Oops. Yeah, here you are. So I wanted to show how easy to get to Mauritius. We have actually 2 direct flights from South Africa, one from Johannesburg, only a 4-hour flight, and one from Cape Town now, which is like a 6-hour flight. And we have only 2 hours difference with South Africa, so which make it very easy to move if ever you still have family living in South Africa, or if you still have business in South Africa and you still have to do, the trip to Mauritius. So it's a very direct and easy.
Oh, Elodie, we lost your sound again.
Now it's fine, yes. All right, so just some few points that I have highlighted, and the 6th reason that I found interesting to invest in Mauritius. So first is our climate, obviously. We are lucky to have like a nice weather, a warm weather throughout the year. And they say that vitamin D is very important for your mental health and happiness, actually. And also this climate will allow you to do a lot of outdoors activities, and which is a really nice quality of life. The second point is the fact that Mauritians speak both English and French. So by moving to Mauritius, you will still be in your, familiar environment. All the administrative procedure are in English, so all admin papers are in English, so which make it very easy for South African. The third point is about the security and stability in Mauritius. Actually, Mauritius has been ranked first in Africa Global Peace Index in 2022. We are an economical and political country, quite stable, with you know, a lot of people from different culture living together on this small island. Another point is also the attractive tax that we have. It's a 15% tax flat on your revenue. You have no capital gain tax when you will sell your property, and no inheritance tax as well. Another point which is quite important for me, as I do have 2 children, is about education. We are now more equipped with a lot of facilities in terms of education, from French system to international school, all around the island, from primary to tertiary education. Actually, at Azuri, I know personally few students from South Africa coming to Mauritius to study on the medical side. So, which proved that we have, you know, well-known university based in Mauritius. And the last point is that since few years now, Mauritius has opened up the possibility for foreigner to move to Mauritius and get access to the resident permit, and what I will be purchase property. So there's a minimum investment to do in this purchase, which is 375,000 USD. So by investing this amount in a property, you and your dependent will be allowed the resident permit, which will allow you to live in Mauritius, but also to work in Mauritius. And this residence permit will be valid as long as you own the property. All right, so now we will focus more on Azuri, which is a beachside estate on the northeast coast of the island. So Azuri welcomed his first owners in 2014, where we had owners from, like, foreigners from overseas, but also Mauritians. That was the initial vision. We wanted to create like a new lifestyle with foreigner and Mauritian residents in one place, and where you would have all the facilities around. We will go through all the facilities that we have at Azuri in the next slide. But first, I just want to show where Azuri is located. So as you can see, it's on the northeast coast. I would say 20 minutes to Grand Bay, 30 minutes to Port Louis, and 50 minutes to the airport. You can see close to the Azuri dot, you have the red and the green dot, which show the schools that you have, the international schools that you have very close to Azuri, and all the medical facilities also that you have in proximity to Azuri. So the next slide. So yes, so the beachside living, there's something very important that I need to highlight. As a foreigner, you can only buy on freehold land. And most of the land in Mauritius on the coast is on leasehold. So at Azuri, we're one of the rare development where we are on the freehold land. So foreigners can buy, and you have a direct access to the beach and to the sea. So I think this USP is very attractive for foreigners who obviously, when they move to Mauritius, want to be close to the beach and the sea, as they can see on all the postal cards. Next slide, please. So we also have a hotel on site, which is managed by the Radisson Blu. So there's like 100 rooms, which make it very practical when you have family coming over to have this facility on site. They have their spa, and as a resident, you also have access to all those facilities in the hotel. Then we also have, next slide, please. We also have 5 restaurants on site. So from the cafe where you could grab your fresh bread or pastry in the morning, or lunch and dinner with Mediterranean, Italian, or steakhouse. So it's very, I think South African really like the idea to be able just to go to the restaurant, walking to the restaurant, enjoy some nice food, some nice wine, and just be able to walk back home. So next slide. We also have a Montessori playhouse. At the moment, they welcome children from 2 to 6 years old. But obviously, you know, the idea of the development and the future of Azuri is obviously to extend and be able to offer a primary and eventually a secondary education, so close to your house. I personally work at Azuri, and I can bring my child every day to school, and knowing, you know, to have her like 1 minute away from me, it's really nice. I think a really nice aspect of living in this kind of estate where you have all those facilities. You also have a lot of shops, so from beach, like, you know, gifts and beach accessories, from ATM, but also a deli shop where you could find, you know, all your basic necessary fresh vegetables, meat, fish, for your day when you receive people at home. And then next slide. We also have some boathouse facilities. So we have boat parking. So for all the, you know, the sea lover, so it's very nice to have all those nautical activities that they offer. You have a boat parking, so it's very easy to offer the service to launch your boat, do the maintenance, and all you have is just to call them when you need your boat in the sea. Next slide. Yes, and since now 3 weeks, we have our 9-hole golf course, which has been designed by IMG, which has opened. We are very, very proud of this new facility and new leisure at Azuri, where we are located. We have few 18 championship golf course, but the 9-hole will, you know, reply more to the resident living at Azuri, where there are still active people, young families, or just newly retired, and a 9-hole golf course really suits, you know, the lifestyle that they have, because you can do it in 1.5 hours, for example, in the morning before going to work, or in the afternoon. And then last but not least, I think the most important thing that we have is this community. At the end, it's all about people. And as of today at Azuri, we have around 700 people living permanently in the village, and we have a lifestyle manager who, you know, makes sure that there's events organized, that people meet new people, because we have a majority of South African, French, but also people from all over the world, and Mauritians getting all together. And it has been really nice to see that over the last 8-9 years by being at Azuri. So now we will focus more on the product, the real estate product that we have to offer off plan at Azuri. So obviously, with the 9-hole golf course open, we have some opportunity on the golf course. So Enia Golf Villa is one of them. So if we look at the master plan, you can see that Enia will be facing the hole number 7 and hole number 8. Very close, like I would say 5 minutes walk to go to the center of the village, to go to the beach. So the Enia Villa, next slide, please. is a semi-detached villa. So they are 2x2 on a piece of land of like 400 square meter. You have the options to have 3 or 4 bedroom. Next slide. So you will have your private garden, private villa and pool, gazebo. We are actually starting the construction on the beginning of February next year. So we expected delivery mid-2024. So I will explain after all the concept of the VEFA and of-plan, how it works in Mauritius. And those villas will start as from 9 million rand that you will pay step by step along the construction. So just the last view from the villa, from the street view where you will access the villa. Then we will go to a more exclusive project, which is our Palmea Sea View Villa. So why I would come back on what I said at the beginning, it's very rare to get freehold land on the sea. So where the Palmea are located, if you look at the master plan, they are very close to the sea. So they all have sea view from the villa, which makes it a very rare product actually in Mauritius, accessible to foreigners. So on the Palmea Villa, we have 8 villas facing the sea, and we have actually only 3 available. Those villas will be as from 23 million rand, and we are starting the construction as well beginning of February. So same for expected delivery mid-2024. Just some few images of the villa. So the villa will be sitting on a 650 square meter. Same, you still have the options to have 3 or 4 bedrooms. Really nice open space, and obviously the nice sea view that you could get from your terrace. Just a few more slides from the inside, and last. So just to come back, those both projects, so Enea and Palmea, are on the VEFA. So the VEFA, how does it work? Is like you buy a property off plan. When you will be signing the deed of sales, we will be giving you what we call a GFA. So it's like a bank guarantee. The idea is really to reassure the buyer that nothing can happen at the end. The bank will interfere if something happened to deliver the product that you bought. And in terms of all the guarantee after the delivery, we still have like this 10 years guarantee on the structure, the 2 years guarantee on all your items inside the house. So it's quite a secure way of purchasing a property nowadays in Mauritius. Obviously, you need to make sure with who you're buying, and the background of the promoter and the developer, and make sure that they give you all the guarantee that you need to get the product at the end. So to finish on Azuri, it's important to highlight that we are kind of a one-stop shop, because if you purchase the property, but you're not, for example, you're not planning to move now, we have this property management service available on site where they will be looking and managing your property when you're not here. You can also put it on the short-term or long-term rental. On the short terms, this will allow you to enjoy your property when you come on holiday, and on the long term, this will allow you to get like fixed revenue every month. And we also manage the resale part. So obviously, some people buy just as a pure investment, and with no capital gain tax. Those can also be some really nice investment for foreigners. So I think I did the tour of Azuri and Mauritius.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elodie. So, so you mentioned you're a one-stop shop. Would that include, the paperwork that you might need done from a visa, and can the client come to you already at that stage? Or is it mainly more around, once you've decided you're going to make that turn, and you've come to Mauritius to come and view various properties, and one of them being Azuri?
Yeah, definitely. We will assist on the admin part around the purchasing of the property, but also to get, if the property is eligible to the resident permit, we will also assist to this application with the EDB.
One of the big focuses is definitely lifestyle, community. You mentioned you've got the schools. I love that statement. It's so nice to have your children close by. That your children must be quite young. I have a teenager. It's a totally different. She might not want to be so close by to me. You're finding that a lot of the 700 home-owned permanent residents, are they sending their children to the Montessori schools? Is it sort of like if you live on the estate, you get a sort of a preference to go to that school? Is that yes, how it's working?
Exactly. If you're a resident of Azuri, obviously you will be you have some advantages. But if you don't live at Azuri, you can also, enroll your child to the Montessori. But obviously, to have the school within the estate, to be able just to walk, to drop your kids, or it's obviously make it very easy.
And how would you position Azuri to where sort of the business hubs are? I mean, I know a lot of people work in a hybrid model, and they go, they're not necessarily always working from home, but the distance to, whether it's Port St. Louis or further up north where a lot of companies are setting up shop, what's the timelines and traffic and routes to those areas like?
Yeah, well, if you have your office in Grand Bay, as I said, it's a 20-25 minutes and no really traffic. If you have to go to Port, it can be 30 minutes. It can be a bit more according to the time and traffic period. But we've seen that more and more people work from home, and at Azuri, you can see a lot of people with their laptop at the cafe. There's also like an open space office very close to Azuri where people can go and do their meetings, or just rent the place to work.
Okay,
but
so
it's also it's also in the plan of the development, where we're also planning to add more office space in the area as well.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is let us move across to Sovereign, because I think there we're going to really talk about the experience of moving. We can start looking at financial structures, and perhaps the team at Sovereign can pull that back. So one of the, I noticed on your slides, Elodie, it didn't mention the price. So just to give us a bit of an idea of the costing, so a unit that we're going to purchase overlooking the golf course, what is the starting price of that unit?
As from 9 million rand.
So from 9 million rand, and a unit that has the beach views, which of course is the one we all want.
23 million rand.
From 23 million rand. And there are, I know that the estate has a number of other units. So what is the sort of starting price of I know there's apartments, there's various property options within the community, but what is the starting price? Around 5 million?
Well, the starting price will be more around the 375,000 USD that you have to spend to get the residence. So for a 3-bedroom apartment that you could get on the resale market.
Okay, and 375 USD is around. Maybe Clem can do a quick calculator for us and have that in the chat. But it's about 5.5 million. We've got two financial sparks on this, so they maybe jump in there before I make a fool of myself. But around 5.5. Okay, maybe around 6 million. Okay, all right, great. Okay, so that gives us an idea of the figures, and let's have a look at what some of the financial solutions are. So Sovereign Group have a number of services that they offer, and Richard will obviously go into that in greater detail. But let's keep those services, let's keep Azuri in mind when we look at these services, as obviously Sovereign and Azuri do work together, and many of Azuri's clients have lent on Sovereign's expertise when it comes to purchasing property. So if I can hand over to yourself, Richard.
All right, so yeah, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm Richard Neal from Sovereign Trust. I'm going to be speaking to you today, but so is Ralph Wichtman. We are colleagues. We used to work together in Cape Town, and then I moved to Mauritius in the beginning of March this year, and it's been a great move for me. It's been quite stressful, but yeah, we'll run through what Sovereign Trust does on a high level basis, just to make sure that everyone knows where we fit into the equation. Then I'm going to speak a lot more about my experience in moving from South Africa as a South African to Mauritius. I'm only able to speak English, not even Afrikaans. So, you know, I'll touch on the linguistic side of things. And then I'm going to hand over to Ralph, who's going to talk about, you know, how do you get to Mauritius, whether it be via property purchase, whether it be via a retirement permit, an occupational permit. There are lots of options in Mauritius. They're very welcoming, and there's lots of avenues to get in. And just to mention, Elodie, I've been to Azuri, I think 3 times now. So it's a lovely residential estate. I've been there to have coffee, had dinner, and had a party there. So I can only speak very highly of Azuri, and it's not that far from our offices in Mauritius. So you might have me on the doorstep soon. Right. So the agenda today, I've briefly run through what I'm going to talk about, but I'll introduce our company, our core offering, focus on Mauritius and what we do in Mauritius. You know, we don't do everything, but we do close to that. The real life case studies, ultimately me and some of the clients that have helped move to Mauritius. Ralph is then going to go through the rest of the presentation. He's going to talk about the residency and permanent options that are available. He's going to talk about residency via Mauritian property, which ties in very well with Elodie and Azuri. He's going to be talking about structuring the property, so how to correctly manage your assets. You know, you can buy it in your personal name, but often there is benefits in putting it into a trust or a company. Very importantly, Ralph's also going to talk about the practical aspects. So, you know, as a South African, you've got your money in rands, maybe you've got some money offshore, but you know, how does one actually fund property purchase or the retirement permits that are available? And then we'll open it up to questions. But I see that some will be popped along the way. I don't want to go into too much detail, but just to mention that Sovereign Trust is a company that's been around for 35 years. We are one of the world's largest independent trust companies. So what we've done in the past 35 years is we've helped clients typically move their very successful businesses and actually externalize their businesses internationally. So that's where we focused initially, is helping entrepreneurs, small to medium-sized enterprises really internationalize their client base. Along with that is obviously wealth, tax, and legacy planning. And to give you an understanding of our size, we've got 20,000 companies and trusts under our administration, and assets under administration of about $20 billion. So that gives you an idea. We're not obviously the largest provider. Those would be, you know, banks, law firms, and accountancy firms. And, you know, you could be talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of clients. But Sovereign Trust fits into the very niche market where we are personable, we are an easy point of contact, and you're certainly not just a number. The products we offer, yes, we can set up offshore companies. We provide all the services. You know, a lot of our clients who do want to immigrate are still of working age and want to continue with their businesses and perhaps set one up offshore. We can help with that. Private client services, that's setting up trusts, funds, foundations, things that really protect one's assets and wealth. We do a lot of retirement planning products, particularly for those that have worked in the UK, those that are moving to the UK, but also for South Africans that want to take some of their discretionary funds and invest it offshore. And we've got very specialized products for that. And typically one would use their investment allowance, the discretionary investment allowance of R1 million, or their foreign investment allowance of 10 million rand with a tax clearance certificate. Then we've got a whole lot of other services. So we can help with insurance across the world. We have some strange and wonderful other ancillary services. So one of those being register a yacht. So we can help clients register their pleasure yachts, register an aircraft for those lucky clients that can afford jets. We can help with market entry services, escrow services, and also quite importantly is we can provide UK tax advice. So for any of the audience that are thinking about buying UK property, or anyone that's actually UK resident or maybe domiciled, we can provide them the tax advice on that. And this little blurb at the bottom is ultimately saying that what we do is ultimately highly regulated and licensable. So within all the offices where we can be regulated and licensed, we hold the appropriate licenses because we're severely liable for what we do. This is just an infographic showing Sovereign Trust. It started in 1987 in Gibraltar, and then pretty much every year for the next 20 or so years, we set up a brand new office in another jurisdiction. You can see there that we set up in Cape Town, South Africa in 1994. So we've been here for close to, my maths is a bit terrible, but I think it's 28 years. So we've been helping South African clients look at their international bouquet of offerings across the group and helping them protect their assets and wealth. Mauritius, also importantly, was established in 2000. So we were 22, 23 years old in Mauritius. A brief recap of what we can do in Mauritius. So this is a nice quote I found. You know, Mauritius historically has been a monocrop economy, or had a monocrop economy, very dependent on sugarcane. It's still, the island is still very full of sugarcane. It's beautiful when you see it grow, and it's strange when it's all cut down. But Mauritius has progressed from sugarcane to tourism, and now it is really fervently within the financial services sector. The number of banks, the number of financial service providers, insurance companies, law firms, and management companies like Sovereign Trust is astounding. And Mauritius really does fulfill the beaches and banks offering. It's a beautiful place to live, but it's also a very good place to have one's money. And it reminds me of an old client I had who said his aim in life is to live in the sun, but bank in the shade. And I think everyone wants to do that. Live in a place like Cape Town or Mauritius or somewhere, you know, which is lovely, low cost and beautiful, but have your money in a place that is protected and it is business friendly. So in terms of our offering, yeah, we can set up companies and trusts, as you know. We also assist a lot of our clients that have companies and trusts with us, or brand new clients to get permits in Mauritius, and Rolf will cover that in a lot more detail. Property holding structures, as mentioned before. We can also assist clients with bank account openings. Typically, we set up bank accounts for the companies and trusts we administer, but we also have eligible introducer status with the banks in Mauritius. So we can help even individuals get personal bank accounts. And very specialized services like outsourced compliance and accounting. So now getting to my real life case study. So this is a little bit, you know, it's personal to me, but I'm very happy to share it. My move to Mauritius, I'm very lucky, but I think what I want to, and what Rolf will really hammer home, is that you can make your own luck. So I was lucky in that in about mid-2021, I was contacted by our CEO. He told me that the current MD in Mauritius was going to be moving back with his wife and kids to Spain to work in our Gibraltar office, which is our head office. And the outgoing MD suggested that I am a good candidate for that, primarily because we've worked close together and, you know, I've got a nice temperament. And yeah, then, I mean, without taking the guy's hand off, I said I would be quite interested. And that it just really followed from there. So it was ultimately offered to me by my work, and that also would apply to any other person. You know, if you find a Mauritian company that wants to employ you, it's very easy to get to Mauritius, but you could also make your own luck and pay your own way and get in there relatively easy. The high-level process involves a couple of things. The first one was consultation on the right permit, and this is where a lot of people go wrong, and it just frustrates everyone involved. So I think more than anything else, you need to get good advice in the beginning, and that's what Sovereign Trust can do for you. We can say, what are you trying to achieve? How old are you? What does your family situation look like? And really nail down maybe one or two options. There might be more, but really focus on the two and then get that down to one, because we don't want to go down the wrong rabbit hole. For me, that happened in November. I was just getting occupation permit, quite straightforward. The bane of my existence is paperwork, but I had to do it. So collection of paperwork, I see from my email trail, I submitted all the paperwork on the 19th of November. So it took me 2 weeks. I then received the in-principle approval on the 16th of January this year, 2022. That, I think, in part was because I didn't complete all the paperwork correctly. It would have been a lot faster. But nonetheless, in-principle approval means that they're happy with what you've provided in scan. And all they need now is for you to actually go to Mauritius and visit the EDB. So my wife and I, we obviously weren't in too much of a rush. I only needed to be in Mauritius in about February, March for a hard start in June. So my wife and I traveled to Mauritius. We landed on the 2nd of March, just a few days before my birthday. And then we did medical tests. Well, I did medical tests, which, you know, is part of the permit application process. But luckily, where Sovereign Trust is situated, right downstairs is a clinic. So really, very luckily, it's a one-stop shop in terms of medical tests. Then I had to visit the EDB. Again, you'll see that there's a 20-day gap between my medical test and visiting the EDB. Again, my fault. I was just very busy with other things, and that could have been streamlined and made a lot sooner. I got my residency permit on the day, and that's very, very nice. So you visit the EDB, you show them your original documentation. They say, please give us an hour or two to actually generate the permit and your residency card. So I went to lunch with some of my colleagues, and then came back into a very nice air-conditioned office and picked up my residency permit. So maybe I'll just stop there and say that, you know, EDB is probably, you know, if you had to compare it, the closest thing it compares to is Home Affairs in terms of function, but it is worlds apart in terms of what it looks like. So you go to Port Louis EDB, it's in a very nice building, it's got parking. You go upstairs, friendly staff, nice couches, free coffee. It's like going to an airport lounge rather than a Department of Home Affairs. And then the last step was getting my wife's application on the back of mine. She's a dependent, and that was issued relatively soon thereafter. So talking about the overall experience, I'm going to be very candid in terms of this. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, but generally it has been very sweet and very little sour. But there are some niggles that I hope people in the audience can avoid. You know, forewarned is forearmed. So the permit experience, I can't denigrate it. I think it was absolutely amazing. Sovereign Trust did my application because I'm being employed by them, but they do that for my clients as well, and it's seamless. The people in Mauritius are absolutely wonderful. I mean, it sounds like I'm just doing lip service, but the people in Mauritius are friendly. They have an amazing can-do attitude. and also talking about people as I've never felt threatened in Mauritius, even though I'm very clearly a foreigner. I'm very welcomed, and it's that feeling of being welcome that you know I really appreciate. It's nice to feel welcomed in a country. The food, I suppose the food, it depends on what you like. You know, luckily I love curry, and the Mauritians, you know, are besotted with curry, and they're all different types of Hindu, Muslim, and Malay curries. So if you like curry, that's great. They're also very good with the vegetables. Obviously, there's chicken. The one thing on the food side to mention to all the red-blooded South Africans is that meat is possible, but it is quite expensive. Well, maybe 50% more than what you'd get at a South African restaurant or Woolworths, but always available. The accommodation, obviously beautiful places like Azuri where you can stay on the beach or very close to the beach. I didn't purchase a property when I moved to Mauritius. You know, I'm just starting out there. I might do in the future. But in terms of accommodation, you know, one would, like me, rent. The one thing I got caught out by is that when you rent in Mauritius, the necessary, well, what I needed to pay was a full month's rent as a commission to the estate agent. So that's something that caught me out. So there's 1 month's deposit, 1 month's payment to the estate agent for the you know, the service. And you know, that's obviously a little bit different to what we would experience in South Africa, where typically the landlord would pay commission to the real estate agent. But all of this is up for negotiation. I just went in a bit blind. So, you know, negotiate up front. Cars in Mauritius, it's worth noting for any petrol heads. I love cars. Cars in Mauritius aren't a status symbol, so you know, no one actually cares what you drive. Only you do. The other weird thing about cars, everything's available there. It might be a little bit more expensive if you want a Porsche or a Ferrari. But the one weird thing I found is that with car insurance, you pay for the full year up front. So I bought a second-hand car, and then I bought myself a brand new car as well. With the car, yeah, you pay the insurance up front. It's only 40,000 rupees. It actually works out less than what I was paying here in South Africa for a lesser amazing car. And the insurance company, unfortunately, I banged my car, and they were absolutely amazing in getting it fixed. So that side of the equation works. Pets, just beware that, you know, pets need to obviously get their vaccinations. They need to be quarantined for a month before they leave to Mauritius. And in Mauritius, you know, there are limitations to how many cats and dogs, in terms of the kennels, they are available in quarantine. But we brought our cat along, and she's very happy. She now rules the roost. The last one, well, second last one is the expat tax. It's not the normal expat tax that, you know, affects people, but there are some things that are going to be more expensive, and there are going to be some things that are less expensive. When it comes to fresh produce, you're going to be paying next to nothing. When it comes to, you know, buying red meat, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. Alcohol is relatively expensive, which is counted in my favor. I've reduced the amount I drink. But all told, very similar to living in South Africa. You win somewhere and you lose somewhere else. What is extremely cheap is telecommunication. So my cell phone contract costs next to nothing, and I get unlimited data, and also internet. So we've got fiber. It got installed within 2 days. That's amazing, and it costs next to nothing. Electricity as well is, I wouldn't say free, but it's so cheap compared to what I was paying in Cape Town. Also, something worth mentioning is island fever. So, you know, it is a small island, but then again, it's also very big. It takes us, an hour 45 minutes to drive from where we are in the north down to the south. And there's amazing things to do along the way. Lots of attractions, lots of places to hike. So my wife and I have not found ourselves bored at all. And yeah, don't take my word for it, or look at residency.mu, and you'll just see amazing videos and pictures of people living the life in the beautiful Republic of Mauritius. Now I'm going to hand over to Rolf, who's going to deal with the nuts and bolts of getting you there.
Great. Thanks, Richard. Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me just to... Great. I think, Richard, will you do the slides for me? Be great. So firstly, there are various residency permits for Mauritius, and the choice of which residency permit you are going to pursue really depends on obviously your personal circumstances. So on the screen, you'll note there the four main categories or four main sort of thought patterns really that guide you in terms of the choice of residency permit. Are you going to work there? Are you going to invest in Mauritius? Are you going to retire in Mauritius? Or are you going to acquire property? So that's one of the key considerations. And it's good to maybe just mull that over in your mind before you jump on the plane. Right, the next one there. Right, so the first category or umbrella category of permit types are called occupation permits, and there's about 3 of them. The first being the professional permit that I'll discuss, but also the investor permit and the self-employed permit. The professional permit is usually sort of pursued by individuals who are going to be employed by a Mauritian company. So you have been extended a contract, employment contract by a Mauritian company or international company may be based in Mauritius. And the key requirement there is that the minimum salary needs to be at least 60,000 Mauritian rupees, all right? There are certain exceptions on that for certain industry sectors like the ICT sector. Mauritius is trying to lure quite a lot of business and companies that specialize in the smart agri, smart sort of healthcare, fintech, and the ICT sector. Obviously, doesn't need or necessitate massive industries and the factories, etc. So that's the type of business that we're looking at, and this is why this concession is made for persons that are employed by these companies. So the professional permit is valid for 10 years, renewable, as long as you maintain for the permits. And what's nice about this is that the dependents, being the spouse and the children, can also apply for dependent permits and piggyback off the main applicant's process. So that actually takes place, as Richard mentioned, immediately after you've been issued with your permit in Mauritius. Important note, you are going to be based in Mauritius. If you are going to be employed by a local company there, you'll probably be on the island for a period exceeding 183 days. That'll then bring you into the Mauritian tax net, which is maybe a good net to be in compared to the SARS tax net, as the personal income tax rate there is capped at 15%. So Mauritius has a lot more simplified tax system compared to South Africa, where companies, trusts, individuals, tax rates are capped at 15%. Now, there are certain exemptions that can be applied for dependents. That's more of a specific scenario, and that's one that we can discuss maybe post the seminar. So what's nice about being a professional permit holder, you are still allowed to invest in businesses, but you may not be employed by this business or be a salarized employee of this business. Okay, it's quite important that. So you can, the whole focus there is to promote people obviously growing their wealth, investing in the economy there. You can invest in other companies as well, hold shares in those companies, just not the majority shareholder. The reason for that is because there are certain permits that already make provision for those requirements, typically the investor permit, which I'll get to in a few seconds. All right. So here we are, the investor permit. Now, the investor permit actually has basically 3 subcategories. I'm going to go just talk about the main one here. And this is the one that a lot of clients actually come to us about who are actually looking at setting up a company in Mauritius. There may be 1 or 2 business partners or 3 or 4, and they are looking at relocating to Mauritius with their families. So the requirement here is that you must invest $50,000 into the company. Now, key point here is that a lot of the clients ask us if it's 2 or 3 business partners, can we collectively contribute $50,000 and everyone qualify for the investor permit? Unfortunately not. So each person who is going to invest or wants to apply for the main applicant investor permit needs to invest $50,000. And the choice of company you'll note there is either GBC, which is called a global business corporation, or domestic company. And your choice to go with which company is basically decided upon in terms of where is the income of the company going to be sourced from. It was predominantly going to be sourced outside of Mauritius from clients and sourced outside of Mauritius. And GBC is your go-to, and the converse applies to the domestic. Right. Once again, the permit is valid for 10 years, renewable, as long as you maintain those minimum requirements. Added requirement there is that the company must, from the third year onwards after registration, be able to show that it has generated income, business income of 4 million Mauritian rupees, approximately $133,000. So it's from the third year onwards, and that's really to enable the company the first 2 years to get on its feet, to expand, and that's the EB doesn't necessarily require you to shoot the lights out when you start the company immediately. It's preferable, but and that's maybe something we can discuss when we get to the permanent residency permits in a few slides. But that is a requirement that needs to be met in order to maintain this permit requirement. You'll note that the tax rate ranges from 3 to 15%. This refers to the company. So even though the flat or the general rule is that the 15% income tax rate applies to basically everyone, certain forms of income that are received by the companies, the GBC and domestic, can qualify for a tax exemption, 80% tax exemption, which basically effectively reduces the tax bracket for that source of income specifically from 15% to 3%. And there are about 6 or 7 categories or source of income that do qualify for that reduction, for that 80% exemption on that source of income. The other sort of subcategory of the investor permit, which might appeal to some persons, would be the investor permit. There's no minimum investment amount there, as with the sort of standard $50,000 investment, but you need to indicate that at least 20% of the research and development components expenditure from the company, which needs to be prior approved, by the way, by the EDB, will take place in Mauritius. All right, Mauritius is extending these permits to build the economy, so they want expenditure in the local economy, which directly or indirectly translates into revenue and the growth of the economy. Right. Next permit there for me. So this one's also quite appealing to a lot of South Africans. This is called the self-employed permit. Minimum investment there is $35,000. Now, this is sort of what we call a sole proprietorship, or the closely linked to South Africa's sole proprietorship. It also is used by a lot of professionals, maybe in regulated industries such as your medical practitioners, veterinarians, doctors, obviously. Just back for me, please, there again to the slide. Yeah, there we go. Maybe attorneys, accountants, etc. So if you do fall in one of those categories, it's also important that you do get the necessary public sector agency to prove you coming to Mauritius prior, because that's one of the supporting documents you need to provide as part of your application. Once again, 10 years validity for the permit, renewable, and annual business income needs to be 800,000 Mauritian rupees as of the third year of registration of the company. Similar to the innovator, that little concession that the gives you. Personal income tax at 15%. Remember, this is a sort of a sole proprietorship, so and also the annual exemptions for dependents can apply. So this is a permit not for everyone, but certainly one that might appeal to persons looking to base themselves in Mauritius. Also, you're allowed to right. Next one. The family occupation permit. This is the fairly new one, really, and this really came about post whole COVID debacle. And what that means is that the family of the main applicant needs to contribute $250,000, a steep amount. And you would think maybe just add a few 130, and at least you have a capital asset that can grow. But this is focused towards families who are able to make a non-refundable contribution to the COVID-19 Projects Development Fund in Mauritius. All right, so here the money shares, that's it. It's not yours anymore. But then you are able to get this family occupation permit. And there are certain benefits, which we'll go into in a second, that people would probably go with, why this permit would appeal to certain people. All right, validity also 10 years, but a normal nuclear family setup also supports staff maintaining them, like au pairs, maybe a butler, maybe support staff. So with this permit type, you can actually umbrella those support staff as part of the whole process. Obviously, you'll need some clearances for them, and they'll also need to provide similar documentation, KYC documents, etc., as part of the application process. But this occupation permit is probably more geared towards your high net worth individuals who are used to having various staff with them. I would maybe only suggest this if that is the case. Otherwise, the property route might be more appealing. Right. Next one there for me. All right, this one is quite popular, and this is probably in terms of the numbers that we receive and the inquiries we do receive. It's probably the residency permit that we receive the most inquiries about. This is for retired individuals. Now, there's a proviso there on the word retired, which I'll get to in a second. So the age, everyone over the age of 50 is eligible to apply for this permit. Minimum transfer amount is $1,500 per month to your Mauritian bank account, and that's something we can assist with opening up for you, or an aggregate amount of 18,000 Mauritian dollars. Now, it doesn't have to be in dollars. It can also be a currency equivalent if it's euros, for example, if European or GBP. Validity period, once again, is 10 years renewable, as long as you maintain those requirements. And very appealing here, not taxable funds transferred. So if you still generate funds offshore. Now, if you're on Mauritius, you're not allowed to, with this permit, work and generate income from Mauritian sources. But if you are still, for example, doing consultancy work with some clients who maybe are approaching their actual retirement, they actually want to retire, but maybe they're 60, they're not, but they're still doing some consultancy work for international companies outside of Mauritius. Then you can still do that and still apply for this permit and qualify for it. And what's nice about it, the EDB says that for 5 consecutive years post the granting of this permit, that income that you generate from a source outside of Mauritius is tax exempt. So a little tax holiday there for you as part of a nice package deal that will be granted to you in this instance. You are still able to invest in business, okay? But you may not be employed by that business in Mauritius and also not receive a salarized income from that business. So quite important. All right, next one slide there for me. All right, so this category, this is called the permanent residency permit. What's nice about this is valid for 20 years. Now, you would think the word permanent means permanent, but not really permanent. It's 20 years. Also renewable, as long as you are able to maintain those requirements. Now, a key component here, I won't go into all of them in detail. Basically, what it comes down to is that the requirements I mentioned for the individual permits earlier, they are increased to higher amounts to enable you to qualify for this permanent residency permit. Now, for you to be able to apply for this, you actually need to hold an existing occupational permit already. And you can apply for these permanent residency permits or your permit to be converted to a permanent residency permit after the first 3 years of holding that occupational permit. And the reason why it's 3 years is initially, actually, the occupational permits weren't valid for 10 years, as mentioned earlier. They were only actually valid for 3 years. It's not recent, about the past few years, they were actually, EDB said, let's extend it for 10 years and help the people out there. So this is quite nice. All the permits that I mentioned are listed there. There obviously it's higher or increased requirements to be met in order to qualify for the permits, for the permanent residency permits. All right. All right, so Elodie mentioned earlier in terms of the schemes as well, and the minimum amount that you need to invest into Mauritian property to qualify for the permanent residency permit linked to your property purchase. You can still purchase property in all the schemes. I know there's a question earlier, I think I did reply to it in the comment section. Someone asked, can you now buy property? There was a lot of talk, legislation being passed, can buy property anywhere in the island, on the beachfront property, leasehold property, etc. It's a bit of a contentious issue, I think, still but you can't, unfortunately, buy anywhere at this stage, and also not directly on the beachfront on leasehold. There is still a lot of regulatory processes in the background. So at this point in time, you may only still buy property within the various schemes. One of the schemes that didn't list there is the ground plus 2 schemes, where it's sort of an apartment where you can also purchase property in. And but Elodie will be able to give you a bit more details in terms of property, the property market and the options available there. But the minimum amount, ladies and gentlemen, is $375,000 to qualify for this. All right. Now, we have a lot of clients that want to buy property in Mauritius, but they might actually already have an international property portfolio, or they might not have an international property portfolio and purely want, for various reasons, and it's mainly for estate planning, tax planning, and legacy planning reasons, that they don't want to purchase the property in their own names. They want to look at a structure, or they might have an existing structure that might hold the property. So this is a very sort of standard structure. It's not the only one that can be used to purchase Mauritian property or hold Mauritian property. And a lot of the considerations, especially from South African buyers, is that they might still have tax residency aspects in South Africa. So if they purchase a property in their own names and hold it, and that you might pass away a month later, which is a hypothetical scenario, of course, that the value of that property will form part of the estate, and estate duty will be payable on that. The executor will take that property value into account because you're taxed on your worldwide assets. Unfortunately, that's the last little smack SARS gives you before you move on to the light. So I think it's a case of that. It's a prudent for persons who maybe look at the options available when they are looking at purchasing Mauritian property, and a structure, whether it be a trust that you're going to purchase the property in, or whether it's a company. A key consideration maybe for South Africans to think about is, are you going to rent out the property or not? Or is it purely a holiday home or family home? You don't like people walking around in your space. If that's the case, family trust might be the good option. If it is something that you are looking at sort of as an investment asset, then a company might be more suitable for that reason. The correct structure would depend on various circumstances, and we are more than welcome to consult with you to discuss that and then take it forward from there. All right, the practical aspects here, Richard did allude to it earlier. So you are able to take, you have a single discretionary allowance that you can take funds out of South Africa, previously called your travel allowance. It's capped at 1 million rand. With that, you can pretty much do what you wish. It does not require tax clearance certificate from SARS, so that's your money. You take it out, you transfer it. And it resets each year in January. Very nice. So take that into account. The next topic category there is the foreign direct investment allowance, capped at 10 million rand. For this year, unfortunately or fortunately, do need to apply for tax certificate. Not a too tedious process, ladies and gentlemen, but it is a requirement that you need to meet. And that's typically what you'll need to submit to the bank for them to actually release the funds out of your SA bank account to the offshore accounts. And there's actually a BOP code for those of you who have transferred money out of South Africa. The BOP code says about 46 or odd of them that you need to classify it, and also it resets in January each year. Surprise, surprise! I often get this question: can I exceed 11 million? Yes, you may exceed your 11 million. You're not capped at 11 million. You can exceed that 11 million allowance, and in terms of application to SARB, there's a bit more paperwork that needs to be completed, the rationale and the due diligence information. Basically, the source of wealth and source of funds information. Well, source of funds is going to be from your account, but it basically needs to, you need to sort of illustrate where the funds are, how you made them, and why you're transmitting or transferring amount exceeding the 11 million cap. All right. So how to fund your structure. Now, this is the instance where you are looking to purchase a property, not in your own name, but through your trust or your company. All right. So it's not a case of just you taking your money and transferring it out, all right, to your structure. Remember, the structure, the trust, the company, you can basically deem it to be a second person or third person. It's an entity in its own right. And if you transfer money just to random third party, there's typically the donations tax applicable. Richie, can we just the following little tick there we go. Then the donations tax would be applicable there. So you don't want to trigger that. That's 20% on the amount that you are transferring. So if you're transferring a large amount, it can be quite a bit of an ANA process. So to prevent that, or if you want to really just have simplified, by all means, if you move in those circles, I certainly don't. But the other option is that you loan the funds to the structure, and it's quite a common practice, really, and it's nice because it addresses from a various myriad of tax reasons behind it. But I just mentioned two there, and we can go into details a bit more when we do consult with yourselves. But there's Section 7, there's Section 31 that needs to be adhered to in terms of the South African Income Tax Act. And the loan, basically, what that means is, in a nutshell, Is the loan at arm's length? Is it a market-related interest rate on commercial terms? So you can't get open-ended loan, and it needs to be market-related interest rates at SARS official rate, or if it's in a foreign currency, the base rate of the currency is a guiding factor to determine what is the interest rate going to be. It's important to expunge that loan as soon as possible. Once again, if you pass away in a month's time, not hoping that everyone lives a very long time, but there is a claim in favor of your estate for that loan. So you want to expunge that loan as fast as possible. We can discuss our routes for you when we consult. All right. Next. I think the slide has really been covered by Richard and Elodie earlier, just in terms of the position of Mauritius. It is a great jurisdiction for various reasons. You can bring your dependents along with your permit. Even your parents, by the way, a lot of people don't know that you can bring the kids and the dependent parents along. I know a lot of people don't want to bring their parents along, but the option is there for you. A visa requirements important there. When you do enter the country, you need to know, am I going to enter when I do the permit process with a tourist visa or business visa? You need to be able to advise you on that. Medical tests, very important. One of the key documents you need to complete or process you need to undergo. And the supporting documents need to be submitted along with your application. Banking is great. Mauritius has world-class banking. A lot of our South African banks are represented on the island, and Sovereign has a good network or a good relationship with a lot of the big banks. And where we do need to assist you to open a private bank, for example, the retirement permit, we can definitely assist you on that. Healthcare, education measures all been dealt with by my two panelists, so we won't go into that. All right, so just a process, my last slide. Book the consultation with us. We'd be happy to sit down with you. We discuss your personal circumstances. We sort of condense what exactly you are interested in and what permit would fit your requirements. Then we send you the list of documents you need. Review those documents. It's an online application. There's certain queries that EDB might ask. We address that for you. Then you receive what they call approval in principle. So that's really nice, because that gives you an indication that you're almost halfway, or actually more than halfway through the entire process. Typically post that, the process would entail you need to travel to Mauritius, undergo the medical tests if you haven't done already. And then also that needs to be submitted. And the meeting with EDB needs to be arranged. And Richard gave you quite a bit of detail on that. And your permit is issued on that day. Post that application and issuing of the permits take place.
Absolutely. So and that just brought me to another question. So if you do your premium visa, you get a bit of a delay of the land, perhaps stay in a rental property or an Airbnb. Richard, you mentioned in your process that you traveled to Mauritius to do the medical. But then you also mentioned later on that you visited the EDB. Now, am I mistaken in thinking that the EDB is based in Mauritius as well?
No, it is. So what effectively happened is that we landed on the 2nd of March in Mauritius. I entered on a business visa, which is applied for at the airport. You just go there and you say, here's my letter and offer of employment. Here's my whole employment contract, which they don't look at. And they stamp your passport, and you've got 40 days as a business visa. If you are running close to the end of that, you can just renew it at the EDB. So yeah, we landed on the 2nd of March and then basically stayed there. We didn't leave until August, when we went on a bit of a holiday.
Okay.
So you do your medical tests there that you need to do in Mauritius. Then you get an appointment at the EDB and visit them. It's very organized. There's only so many people that come at a certain time. So yeah, you don't have to leave Mauritius. You enter on a business visa, for me at least, for occupational permit, or you'd enter on a tourist visa for the retiree and the other less.
And
yeah.
So, and any of the other residencies, you still have the same process. So whichever residency permit, a residency program you're following, you would still need a medical, you would still need to see the EDB, you would still, okay. And then if I know you mentioned a couple of things, obviously folks look at trusts when they, as you mentioned, looking at your estate, your tax, your legacy. a trust can also be considered quite a costly way in which to wrap an investment. Can you talk a little bit to that cost versus the benefit of a trust versus perhaps putting the buying through your business or buying in some other mechanism?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's definitely horses for courses. You know, trusts, I think, have certainly gotten a bad name when you look at maybe some jurisdictions like the Isle of Man or Jersey, and some people have been taken to the cleaners just in terms of high cost. But there's no reason not to use a trust. You know, in terms of cost wise, if you're looking at an immersion trust, it's probably $4,000 in year one, and annually about $2,000. So it's certainly not going to be for everyone, but you know, the clients we've got, you know, have got something to protect. So if you've got assets to protect and you want to have peace of mind as to who's going to benefit when, you can't do better than a discretionary trust. But yeah, as I said, you know, you need to have a relatively chunky estate, because yeah, you're not going to be able to substantiate those fees if you don't have a nice chunk of change.
Absolutely. So just also, I know we're running out of time, but I was quite interested if you're looking at, and often we're finding a lot of South Africans are perhaps moving their businesses across and setting up shop in Mauritius, although their market they're still servicing could be South Africa. So they're setting up their head office in Mauritius. Do you think this is not a wise or legitimate, but a good way in which to move the business first? So move your business first, set up your head office, go through that process. But you're still obviously servicing a South African market. Is that possible?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I've been with Sovereign for just over 10 years now, and slowly but surely, I mean, I've gotten clients that have had, you know, relatively successful and mature companies, and even ones that have done it more recently. But the short answer is that yes, you can set up an offshore company. It can start serving perhaps an international client base, you know, doing business outside of South Africa, get that up and running, get the wheels moving, get the money coming in, and even that company could then use those funds to, you know, pay for your permit or buy your property. And then once you actually physically move to Mauritius, and a few of my clients, it's probably numbers at about 5 to 7 clients have actually picked up their families and used their existing company to be their effective sponsor to get them and their dependents residency. So, and they're very happy on the island. I've met with most of them in the last couple of months. So it's certainly a nice way to transplant yourself. You can start amassing money offshore so that you don't have to use rands to buy properties or fund your living. So yes, that is suggested to most of our clients.
Elodie, if I can just ask you a question. So obviously, as a promoter, working for a development, you would rely on the services of companies such as Sovereign to assist your clients with structuring that purchase. Could you give, sort of your clients a bit of advice around, they've come out to Mauritius, perhaps they're coming in December, they're having a look at a few properties. What would you recommend their process be from there if they do select something that they would like to buy?
Yeah, so definitely before going ahead, I always advise first to see the options of the structuring, because, there's different cases and different structure that can adapt to each other. And also the financing part, because a local bank do finance foreigners for property acquisition in Mauritius. So we always recommend 2 to 3 banks or 2 to 3 management company before proceeding, with the acquisition.
Okay, and then, so you mentioned that there are some banks that are financing the property. Is it up to 70%, or what is the?
Yes, exactly. That would be the maximum for foreigner. Obviously, it would depend on the profile and but that's the maximum the bank will finance.
And the Sovereign, I know you're not necessarily a bank, but have you found that your South African clients, maybe Ralph, you can answer questions, your South African clients have had some success with financing properties through Mauritian banks?
Most of the clients I've dealt with it was cash purchases, so they either have funds already offshore in their offshore bank accounts, some sort of investment that they liquidate. I haven't really seen specifically a lot of clients applying for the loan. The ones I have seen have gotten more into the application that they've submitted more on the lower ends, like 30%, which they needed. So they really have funds offshore that they use for the balance or the majority of the actual purchase amount, and a small amount for the purchase. For the balance which they get via mortgage.
Okay, so I think what's excellent is knowing that both those options are open. So depending on what you want to do, you can lean on the different structures. Okay, folks, you know, we've covered so much. I think a lot of the questions, to be honest, that came my way have been covered through the presentations that you have had had on offer at the moment today. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you to the keyboard warriors in the background that were busy with the presentations and answering all the questions that have come in through the chat. To everybody that's joined us today live, we appreciate your time, and we hope that you found this webinar and this conference interesting. As I've noted before, we will take this recording, we will divide that up into the various different sessions, and we will share that. We'll also share the details of all of our speakers and panelists. And of course, I have already received your information as attendees of those that are looking to get additional information. And I will connect you with the panelists that you've heard here today, and so that we can assist you with that property purchase, because and assist you with that immigration plan that you might have, that's no longer just on the back of the mind, but rather something that you're putting action in today. So thank you to everybody, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day further. I think we lost Clem somewhere along the line, so I won't be able to ask him to put on our video. So I'm just going to end the meeting. I'm so sorry, folks, cutting it a bit short, and have a lovely day further. Thank you.